Welcome to today's webinar, 9 Ways Google Apps for Education Can Address Variability, brought to you by Simple K-12. My name is Lori and I'm here with Matt Bergman, and we are so excited to have all of you here with us today. Now, just a little bit about our presenter. Matt Bergman is a K-12 learning technology specialist at the Milton Hershey School in Hershey, Pennsylvania. He's a former high school and middle school teacher who won the 2015 Pennsylvania Association for Educational Communications and Technology Teacher of the Year. Now, Matt is a Google for Education certified trainer and an Apple educator, and he frequently presents at face-to-face and online conferences across the nation. Matt, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. I appreciate that. And welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us here on a Saturday morning. I don't know where you are, but it's a little chilly where I'm at up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So I wanted to share with you 9 ways that Google Apps, or now it's been rebranded, it's called G Suite, can address variability. And like Lori had mentioned, I've made a lot of different presentations and consulting work across the country, but I always love being here for Simple K-12 webinars. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you is that Google Apps for Education went through a rebranding process. I think it's about a year ago. They are now calling themselves G Suite. And so it's the same Google Apps that you're used to, Drive and Docs and Forms and Calendar, etc. But it's just rebranded as G Suite. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the way that variability, or the way that we're all different, how Google can help address those learning needs. I mean, our classrooms are more diverse than at any time in our history. We have ELL students. We have an increasing number of students with IEPs. We have students coming from different countries into our classes. We have kids moving from different states. And so how do you address all of that variability? And so one of the ways that I'm going to share is through the Universal Design for Learning framework. I'm a consultant that does a lot with school districts across the world on UDL. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on how we can use Google to engage, how we can represent things differently, and how we can have students express their knowledge differently. And that's how I'm going to break down my presentation today. So the very first thing that we need is if this is your brain, the back part of your brain where your wrist is, the back part of your brain where the back of your head is, that's responsible for how we represent things differently. So students, when they first learn a particular topic, they need it represented differently. And we do this all the time through providing options for comprehending it differently, or language, changing the language up, making symbols and expressions a little bit easier to understand. Kind of like we use in math class PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, for order of operation, or perceiving things differently with their senses. So one of my favorite tools to do that is YouTube. And many of us use YouTube, but do we really use YouTube to its full capacity? So many teachers are flipping their classrooms or using some type of blended or hybrid learning in their class. But you could automatically be creating a barrier for some of your students if you don't know some of the tools that exist in YouTube. For instance, the closed captioning feature on YouTube allows you to turn on the closed captioning feature of any video. You don't have to type anything in, and this is helpful for students with hearing impairments or even students trying to learn the English language. It's a great way to help them. Another way that you can help students understand a particular topic is this new augmented reality feature of YouTube called YouTube 360. I don't know if you've ever seen YouTube 360, but I have a video right here of some penguins, and you're going to see right here, we're going to be going to, I'm going to turn the sound off here. We're going to be going to a place where penguins are, okay? And what I can do is I can actually move the video with my hand here. If I have an iPad, I can use the YouTube app and move it around, much like Google Glasses, so that students can see the different different things that they're exploring. So this right here, here's a penguin. I get to actually see the penguin, and I get to hear the video, and there are sometimes I actually get to see text written across the screen as well. So YouTube and YouTube 360 are a great experience for your students to get a little bit more of an understanding of your topic and interact with it in a different way. Another favorite feature of mine are language tools. We have an increasing number of English language learner students coming into our schools. We have students whose parents don't speak English. And so what sort of tools can we have to help our students? Well, there's all sorts of different tools, but let's take a step back and let's think about even numbers. Sometimes numbers can be very difficult for our students to understand. So if you have students who are having a difficulty actually saying the number in math class, you can type the number, you can type in English afterwards, and it's going to tell you how to say that number, which is something that many students, especially at the elementary and middle school levels, struggle with. So that's a great tool. Or, for instance, maybe you want to use a quick translation feature. So perhaps students are reading up on a particular topic and there's a word that they don't understand. They can simply go and do a Google search and just type in Google Translate, and this widget will pop up on your Google search. And all you have to do is type the text. It can detect the language for you automatically, or you can choose the language that you would like, and then you can translate it into English. This is very helpful for many of our texts that we read that are cross-cultural, that we need to read some type of term and understand it. Or there's the Google Translate feature, which I know a lot of foreign language teachers do not like, but it is a helpful tool where you can translate text into another language. That can be very, very important. Or for instance, like I had mentioned before, we have a lot of parents that are coming to this country and they don't know English. And so how can we communicate with them? Well, in a Google Doc, if you had, say, for instance, a parent newsletter that you sent out to your students and your parents, you could then go to the Tools menu and translate this document to any language you want, and then it's going to create an entirely new Google Doc for you that you could share with parents, you could print out. Once again, it's not entirely accurate. There's always that margin for error, but it could be a very helpful tool to bridge the gap between home and school. All right, so another way that we can help represent things differently is through the power of screencasting. Now, there's all sorts of screencasting tools out there, and essentially what screencasting is you're recording what's on your screen. Sometimes you can use your camera, your webcam, to record yourself. But the power of screencasting lies in the apps that you choose to use. So if you're a Mac user, you have on QuickTime, you automatically have a built-in screencasting tool on your Mac. Or for instance, if you want to use Screencast-O-Matic on a PC, or if you have a Chromebook or you're using the Chrome browser, you can use Screencastify, which is a Chrome extension. Now, a great way of doing this would be possibly recording homework. So many parents struggle with helping their child with homework because they simply don't remember, they don't understand, or maybe they're not available. And so a teacher that I know uses Screencast-O-Matic or Screencastify to screencast themselves explaining the homework, so showing the document on their screen and explaining it, and then going through and doing a sample problem. She then uploads that, and if your school blocks YouTube, you could simply upload it to Google Drive, and you could share it from there. Or you could upload it to YouTube, and what she did is she created a playlist on YouTube, and then because she was a math teacher, she would then put a QR code on her math assignment because she wanted her students to actually fill it out by hand, but they could use any mobile device, and she put even a shortened URL so that they could visit a computer. That right there could help them watch videos to help scaffold their learning. So another way that our students need help, and brain science is very crystal clear on this, is that the very front part of your brain where your cerebral cortex is, that's responsible for how we demonstrate our understanding, how we express our knowledge differently. So what does that mean? And how do you do it? Well, it could be options for physically interacting with content. We think of movement in the classroom, manipulatives, but it also could mean assistive technologies as well. And there's all sorts of assistive technology features with Google and the Chrome browser. Also, it's expressing their knowledge differently, and then the whole higher level thinking, executive functioning, setting goals, maintaining those goals to further their learning. And so one great tool that you can use are some of the accessibility features in Google's apps and also the Chrome browser. And one in particular is in Google Docs, and that is voice typing. So whether you have difficulty using your hands or you have difficulty getting your thoughts to paper, this is a great tool that students can use to then help them construct a writing assignment. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Well, students need to learn how to type and they need to learn how to do this and that. I get that, but think about what your goal is. Is your goal to have them type a paper? Then they're going to need to physically type. But if your goal is to help them construct a paper, to construct a paragraph on the causes of World War II, then maybe what we need to do is be flexible on the options of getting there. And so some other tools that could help your students, especially when they're interacting with web content, is this is a Chrome extension called Change Colors. And this is very helpful for some of your students who need inverted text. And so this right here will change the colors and invert the colors so that it's easier to see for either students who are visually impaired or students who have maybe color blindness. This is a little bit easier for them to see and to interact with the terms. Or say, for instance, this extension, this is called text mode, where you can turn off all of the pictures and the visuals, because sometimes it can be very distracting for our students. And so this is a great way for them to focus completely on the text rather than having the advertisements and the videos distracting them. This could help them focus. So this is called the text mode Chrome extension. Another tool to help students express what they know or show what they know differently is Google My Maps. Now, Google My Maps is really neat. I have a link right here to the actual application. But one of the things I love about this is that you can create your own personal map and then share that map with your audience. Okay, so students can collaborate on this. They can create their own maps. This is a map that I created on where I have lived throughout my lifetime. And so you can see right here, here's the link to the map. I'll just click on the link. And this is going to take you to a Google map. And with this Google map, it's going to show you all of the different places that I have lived. And so I can click on where I was born in Alliance, Ohio, and I can see that I can embed not only a picture, I can embed text, and I also can embed video right here. And I can interact with this map to see different spots that I've lived in, and it will actually help tell the story of my life. Not only is that helpful for our own lives, but it could be very helpful if you're telling the story in a book. And so Google My Maps is a free tool. It links to your Google account. And the best part is that it will actually save onto your Google Drive. You can collaborate and share this with other students. Other students can collaborate on the same map, and it helps tell the story in a unique way. So let's say that you have a 5-paragraph essay on a particular setting or a particular book. You could have the students write each paragraph with 5 different spots on a Google My Map. Now, executive functioning, that's something that many people struggle to understand what that is. And what that really has to do is it's goal setting. It's all about goal setting, achieving goals, and maintaining your goal setting status. And so some ways to do that would be in Gmail. If your students use Gmail, there's a feature, a task feature that you can use just simply by going in the top left-hand corner of Gmail and going to tasks and then typing in your tasks. Now, there's some pros and cons of this. The pros are that students can create a list, a to-do action list. The cons are it's not very collaborative and it's very limited on what you can add. So one very helpful tool that you could use is Google Keep. What I like about Google Keep is it's very similar to the way that Padlet is structured, although it's not the same. You can create a Post-it note and it creates a checklist of things that you need to do, but there's other things that you can add. You can collaborate with somebody, so you could have a collaborative list of things that you need to do, say for a project. You could write your answers, so you could hand write things on either the app or on the web version. You could add a picture if you'd like. You could add pictures, change the color of your Post-it notes, set up reminders, and you can even import this into Google Docs as well. So if you needed to import this into Google Docs, there's a add-on in Google Docs that will help you do that. Now, setting goals is something that's very, very important. And one of the things that I used to do in my classroom when I was in the classroom is for projects in particular, I would have my students set a goal, a daily goal of where they wanted to be if this project was going to take multiple days. So at the very beginning of class, when I'm taking attendance and kids are coming into the classroom, they would go to this Google form, they would type in their name, they would check in at the beginning of class, and they would set a goal. Then what would happen is the last 5 minutes of class, where we're cleaning up, everybody's sitting around, we would want to have them visit the end of class tab. And it would ask, did you meet your goal? What are you going to do differently to meet that goal? What are you going to try to do tomorrow? It would help them analyze their goal. The next day we would repeat the process. What would happen is everything would go in a spreadsheet for me, and I would be able to see how my students were doing. I would be able to have conversations on setting appropriate goals, which is a very important skill for our students to have throughout their lifetime. Well, the middle part of the brain is probably the most important part. And that's how we engage with things differently. And so engagement can mean many different things to many different people. I remember one mentor of mine who told me an engaged student is very rarely a discipline problem. And isn't that the truth? But what does that mean? And so what that means is giving students options to recruit their interest, helping them have the appropriate balance between rigor and relevance, challenging them, and then also helping them self-regulate their behavior. All of these are very important components of engagement. And so one of the things that I love to do is I love to use Google Drawings. Google Drawings is not only a great tool to create interactive worksheets, Venn diagrams, and other graphic organizers, but it could be a great way to set up an assignment too. So this is an example of an interactive worksheet by David Garcia where you can use this protractor. Students actually get the copy of this particular Google drawing. They have their own copy. They drag the protractor over to the angles. They measure the angles. They drag the protractor over to the right side of their screen and then develop and draw the 32-degree angle and a 160-degree angle. So that's very helpful. Another tool that you could use it for is for infographics, communicating information, making information pop for students. You could very easily do that for your students to gather their attention. Or one of my favorites that I was alluding to earlier is that you could create a tic-tac-toe assignment board. So for instance, this is an assignment that I gave on current events. And the goal was for students to summarize a current event and then share their opinion. But I wanted to give them some flexibility on how they did that. And so I was able to do that because I didn't want them to only use printed magazines or printed articles. They could also use online articles or videos or audio. That was just part of the assignment. You may not have that flexibility in your particular assignment. So then to summarize, they had some options. They could do a word summary, they could do an audio summary, recording their voice, or they could do a video summary. And then the goal was to share their opinion. Once again, they had those same exact components. So they could choose to go in any order they wanted. They could go vertically. They could go diagonally. They couldn't go horizontally, though, because that wouldn't make sense for this particular assignment. I've seen teachers use this for their daily 5 in the elementary school level, where they pick 3 different tasks to do that day. I've seen teachers use this for history assignments. There's all sorts of different ways that you can use that for. So self-regulating behavior, like what are some things that you can do to help students self-regulate their behavior, make sure that they're on task? Well, if you do a simple Google search for, say, a 10-minute timer, this creates a timer that automatically starts, and it will allow students to see how much time they have left. You could even do this in the front of your classroom. You could have students do this individually if they're at different points in your room or in the work area. That's one way. Another is my favorite. This is called the Time Warp Chrome extension. And what this Time Warp Chrome extension will do, you have to install it on each student's device, and each student has to turn it on. That's the only caveat. But if they create what is called a time warp, they have 3 different tools that they can use. So this redirect tool right here would mean if I put in that any time that I visit Facebook, it's going to redirect me to Google, it'll automatically do that. So if you really want to mess with your family members or friends, you set this up and then you do that. And any time they type in Facebook, it's automatically going to take them to Google instead. So that's one thing you could do. There's also this quote feature. So if you don't want to go to Facebook and you want to put a motivational quote saying like, time is a wasting, you could do that as well. Anytime that they go to Facebook, time is a wasting will pop up. Or for instance, if you wanted students to visit, say, Quizlet.com and actually create and practice their vocabulary terms, this timer would time them for how they're active, how long are they in that, how long is their browser screen active, and if they close out of it, it pauses. If they go to another screen, it pauses, and that'll show you how long that they've been working on there. So that's called time warp. All right, so options for participation, that's another big thing, is how can you help students participate in class, because that can sometimes either squash engagement or it can enhance engagement. So there's some different tools that you can use. I don't know if you've checked out Google Slides lately, but in the top right-hand corner of your screen where you have Present, there is a arrow that you can click. And when you click on that arrow, you can go to Presenter View and use the new Audience Q&A feature. And so what Q&A does is it simply, your screen's going to look like this on your computer. Your projector screen is going to look like so, and you're going to see a Google address up at the top of your screen, and students could then participate by asking questions. When they ask questions, it's going to appear over here on this right-hand side, and you're going to be able to see who asked the question, and you can then display that question anonymously, if you'd like, up on your screen so that students can participate during slideshow presentations. Another great tool is Google Photos. One of the things about Google Photos is that many people say that it is a backup solution, which it is, but there's also some very creative tools that you can use. And so what I did is I took pictures of the Ohio State Buckeyes mascot, Brutus, here, and I then put those pictures into Google Photos. There is an animated GIF feature that allows you to create this animated GIF. So this could showcase the process. It could showcase the steps of an experiment. There's all sorts of different ways that you could use this tool to get students to be engaged. And one of my favorite tools, this is called the Tweeter message board. This is just simply a Google form, and if you want more information on this, I did provide a link to a blog post that I made. But essentially what it is taking a Google form and creating a Twitter feed. And so there's some really neat steps that you can follow on here, and your students can post, and as you can see, you have your students comment, and then you also have your student's name, and it limits them to 140 characters, like Twitter. All it is a Google form. That's it. The other part I like is that there's a moderation feature. built in. And so Tammy Worcester Tang created this, and just it's an amazing tool because you can then control which student can participate and which student can't participate. So I want to thank you very much for listening to my presentation today. I want to share with you my blog. If you want more ideas on technology and creating accessible learning environments for students, please visit bergman-udl.blogspot.com. You can also email me at mattbergman14@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter. I always love being able to connect with you on Twitter. And finally, last but not least, this bit.ly address right here is going to take you to a Google form. And that Google form is just going to be a little survey that I need completed to maintain my Google for Education Certified Trainer status. Once you have completed that, then you're going to get a link to this particular presentation. So I encourage you to do that. It gives me some positive feedback, helps me make some changes to future presentations. And remember, it is case sensitive. So it's 2, at the end there, it's 2X. That's an L, not a 1. So an L, U, E, capital T, and then capital H. All right, Lori, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, great, Matt. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Let me go ahead and pull the screen back here. I'll get your contact information up from my end. Did have a few questions coming in. If you do have a question for Matt, please feel free to submit it now through that questions box of GoToWebinar. That first question came in from Tanya. Just how do you get the photo to animate?
Okay, so when you go into Google Photos, the very first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to upload your photos. Once you do that, in the Photos application, there's a feature called Animation. Just choose Animation and then pick your photos, but make sure that your photos are in the order, as you're clicking, the order that you want, and then it automatically does it for you.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Now, what were the steps for the options to self-regulate for participation? Tanya said it went fast.
Oh, okay, yeah. So for self-regulation, okay, so basically we're looking at, options. It really realize it's really going through the whole engagement piece. And so when you're looking to engage students, it's about recruiting interest. It's about sustaining effort and persistence. And then it's also about offering options for the self-regulation. I would recommend, if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I would go to the udlcenter.org website, so udlcenter.org, and it's going to give you even more information on that, what that may look like.
Okay, great.